Hey everyone, it's the Coco Nomad here, and I am back with another episode talking about work locations. One of the things I encounter in my travels and the years of working remotely is that I have lots of different locations from which I work, and I use them for different purposes. I've had conversations with other people that I've met while traveling on the road, and it's really important to sort of understand that you can still leverage it, whether you're traveling internationally or whether you're still in your home city, working remotely, working from home. You can leverage different locations for different purposes. So I thought I would share how I use different work locations, and maybe you can do the same. It may help you, give you a little bit of information, may inspire you to sort of break out of your normal routine of work locations and where you work from, and kind of give some tips too as well, because I think it's important to understand that there are some pros and cons to each of these types of work environments, which is why I try to focus on what I use primarily, what I do primarily from each location. Things like the environment, the noise, the comfort, power, potential distractions, and then any other drawbacks that might be a part of that. So let's go ahead and dive in. And so the first one that I use quite a bit is co-working space. It is my go-to primary work location when I'm traveling, or even back when I was only working remotely within the US. I started leveraging that because I wanted a separate workspace, and I had plenty of space in my house. But there's something about going somewhere to work and having a mindset of going somewhere. Now, there's some tricks and some hacks you can do to sort of create that even within your house. But let's talk about these separate physical spaces first. And like I said, co-working spaces are really big for me. I like to get out of the apartment. I get exercise when I walk. There's a community of other people, and there's an environment of work. When you walk into a co-working space, there's an environment where people are serious minded. And so you just know you come in here, this is a place to work. It just gives you that entire feel, that vibe. So it's good for that. My primary use for co-working spaces is my deeper focus work, which is usually my coding. Like if I have a client project and I really need to be focused and start trying to plan out, solve a problem, code a solution, that is what I'm going to do. Secondarily, I might do some writing, but I don't necessarily need that type of environment for that. And so I really do sort of preserve it for when I really want to get some deep focus work done and in some sessions. I go right to the co-working space. Currently, I work from one called Bunker. There's another one here called Nest that I've also worked from. I spent primarily last year working out of Nest, this year working out of Bunker. I love both the environments. I will say in an environment, you do want to pick a place that works for you. For instance, a lot of people prefer Nest. It's a lot brighter, a lot more natural sunlight. A lot of people complain and they say Bunker's pretty dark, but that's exactly why I like it. I like that darker focus. I'm sitting here coding, kind of, it's a whole vibe, programmer vibe. So I really dig it. And I really feel like I can just zone in and get work done. In terms of noise can be an issue in co-working spaces, but there's usually some rules around quiet spaces and quiet times. There's usually like an area where they want you to be silent if you work in a quiet area. There's some other areas, of course, where people are taking phone calls and have to make phone calls. Not all places provide call booths or private offices. So you are still sharing this space. It is a co-working space that you are working with other people, and you want to be mindful of that. I wear earphones, headphones, my AirPods, and I find actually, even though I have the original ones, not the new ones. So even though they're not noise canceling, I've never had a problem blocking out the ambient noise or other conversations. So it's not really an issue for me. In terms of comfort, that is really location dependent. I tend to go early because I get my first selection of the chairs, and I can move the chair to where I want to work and set up the work environment that I want, or I go late when I can do the same. Most of the co-working spaces you encounter usually have ergonomic chairs and larger desks, so you can sort of set out your workspace and do those types of things and be comfortable. But it really is dependent. Some workspaces are smaller. Check the place out and make sure that it's going to work for you in terms of the environment, the ambiance, the environment, the cost, even, because that's one of the drawbacks. I think it's minimal distraction in terms of getting work done, but it can be cost prohibitive. A lot of times there's co-working spaces that can be pretty expensive, and it really does depend on your budget. If you're a freelancer and you're working, or if your job is picking up the tab, then that's one thing. I used to work for a company where the job did pick up the tab for the co-working space because we were a totally remote company. But it's come out of your budget. You might want to, take into account. And usually there's some flexibility there, like not necessarily buying a private office or not necessarily having a monthly plan. Maybe they have some other type of a la carte plan where you can buy hours or days. And so it's worth looking into. Let's move on to the second place that I like. And this is a place that I do, it's sort of my fallback for a couple of reasons. This is my fallback for if the power goes out in my place, which has happened a couple of times, if the internet's not up, and that's happened both at the workspace and here at the apartment in some places, and that's cafes. So I tend to try to have a few cafes strategically placed around that I go to. The primary work, the primary use that I use that for is creative work. I do a lot more writing there. I do some coding and debugging. Like usually once I'm debugging something, it's a little bit easier. It's not as deeply focused. I'm just sort of going through steps to find out where problems are. If it's really bad, I do go back to the co-working space, but most of the time I'm writing, whether I'm writing blog posts or I'm just writing something for some other projects, and it keeps me, the ambiance is what I'm actually using. I actually like the ambient noise and people walking around. There's just something about being around other people that I find like stimulating creatively. So it really helps. And that's how I use it. Power can be a problem, finding enough power outlets to plug in your devices. So you probably want to make sure you're fully charged up or you have a backup battery if you have one of those. Um, the distraction level can vary. A lot of cafes actually have very similar environments to co-working spaces. They sort of like promote themselves as such, as a place that you can go in and work. So one of the reasons why actually I'm really looking forward to going to Antigua, Guatemala this week is that it's known for having a lot of great cafes. I like checking them out. It was one of my favorite things about being in Vietnam. Is there's like tons of these little cafes. You can go into these buildings, you find a little corner, quiet place, cool ambiance, good coffee, teas, or other kinds of drinks, and you can spend your time there. And that's the other thing too, is like you may have to spend some money buying coffee, buying food or drink to stay in there, and then security. I encountered this in Medellin last year when I was working there. I used to work out of a Starbucks a lot. And even though I knew a lot of the people there, it's like making friends and we look out for each other, there were still a couple of times where laptops were literally stolen. Someone was able to walk in while someone went to the bathroom, snatched the laptop and ran out. It was a bigger problem in some places than others. It was a big problem in Cambodia, watching your stuff. But some places a little bit easier, but just like make friends. Like for instance, in Mexico City, I worked out of a Dunkin' Donuts, and loosely calling it a cafe. I mean, they sell coffee. But I worked with a couple of people there that I met, some locals, and like we just look out for each other. So we watch each other's stuff and we're sort of sitting together. So if someone comes over there, whether they're with you or not. So just sort of have a buddy if you're going to do that. A lot of times when you meet some people, be very, very careful because it just takes a second. Someone can walk off with your stuff. So be really, really careful about security with cafes. But other than that, I think they're a great place. Like I said, I work out there a lot. It's my fallback location, and form community with other people that are there. The third one is kind of the normal one, I guess I would say. It's like the working from home. I just call it home or working from home. And I have it third because it's not my preferred location. I think one of the biggest things, if you are going to work from home, make sure you have a separate workspace than your living space. Again, you want to create an environment of work and an attitude of work when you sit down. And so it's really important that you do that mentally and physically if you can. I know sometimes we don't always have the largest places. I've had a lot of studios and I've got a desk, but even for that desk, that is the place for work. I don't do anything else over there. I just personally have learned that I don't like having my bed in the same room as my workspace. I just find I like when I'm ready to go to bed, I want to go to bed. And if my desk is there and I can see the stuff, sometimes I tend to think about like work things even while I'm in the bed, and that's not good. So in terms of that, I primarily use this home environment like here for this. I record videos. I do a lot of calls because I can stand up, I can walk, and I can talk, and I don't disturb other people. So for those types of things, on days where I have calls or days when I'm recording, then I absolutely stay home. At least for that portion of the day. A lot of days I mix it up. Like right after I finish this, I'm headed to the workspace. And I will say one of those reasons is the internet's faster at the co-working space. It's one of the reasons why I use it. It's a lot faster. This is great here, but it's even better. So I can do calls, but uploading large files, video files is always good for being somewhere else. If I have longer consultation calls, coaching calls, things like that, I do them here too. Again, just gives me a free reign to sort of walk and talk and really be, I'm a little animated when I'm talking to people. So this doesn't disturb other people. So working from home still has its purposes and its value. The distractions, though, you do have to worry about. And that could be everything from your pets to your family members to the television, the couch, any entertainment, food. Be careful about overeating because you're just here. You can just get really, if you're really snacky, you can just eat snacks. And it's just like, it's not always the best thing. So be mindful of that when you are working from home to try to create the optimal environment while you're here. So the next one is one that I don't use a lot, but I do use it strategically and I do find it pretty cool. I used to have a joke about this because when I was in Thailand, I had a photo of myself in a hammock at a co-working space because they have them right there on the sand, the beach. And a lot of people like post up their social media photos, they're sitting there. And for me, this location is a beach club or a poolside, these places, rooftop pools and things like that. I tend to use these for like more inspiration or planning. So like if I'm planning, like I'm doing my weekly review or something like that, I go somewhere really nice. I've got music going. It's usually loud, so it's not the best place for focused work. It's usually like a lot of loud dance music because again, people are having a good time. It's not always the most comfortable place because the chairs, I mean, there might be some loungers, you're in a cabana, that's cool if you can work with your laptop or things, but a lot of times I just have like a simple notebook. I'm not taking anything electronic, so I don't want sand in the air, and the lighting is really bad, the sun and the glare. That's why I say it's not an optimal place for like deep work or focus work. But it's cool if you want to, like, I use it just like taking a break. It's inspiring for me. Like even when I'm working on a newsletter or working on some content, I might take my laptop and sit down and try to get some things done. And the environment, sort of like a coffee shop, but a different vibe. It's like I see people, there's lots of food, there's lots of drink. So you have to be careful about that too. One of the cool things I've been doing more recently here in Playa del Carmen is the Mexpex group have a deal and I can go to this Thompson Hotel rooftop and I can work. And so I actually grab a table and do proper work for the first half of the day and then just hang out at the pool for the second half of the day. And it's all sort of baked into this price and it's really nice. So if you can find places like that, that's even better. And it's sort of like a reward in some ways for yourself, like put in that good work on the first half of the day, second part of the day, just enjoy yourself, relax. You're already at the pool, bring your trunks, bring your swimsuit, towels, have food and drink and have a good time and like close it out. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about is virtual co-working. Now, this is something that I've done for years, but it was in a different environment. We called it something differently. And basically, a lot of times we would work remotely and do pair programming as a software developer and have two people on a call. And one person would be typing and maybe we'd switch over and talking through things. Now I use it more for coaching, client work, and community building. So you can have a session, virtual co-working session where people can log in on a Zoom call like this, and everybody may not be working on the same thing, or just sort of doing their own thing. And you can, set an environment. Again, it's like an environment for work. Everybody's there to work. I've also done it in the past with write-ins for like NaNoWriMo's and National Novel Writing Month. It's like we do the same thing. It's like it's an air of like work in a purposeful meeting. And even though we're not talking to each other necessarily, so you come online and you just want to write. You're just going to get your words out for you, get your word count up for the day. A good way to do this, though, is to establish a time of focus and then have breaks where there can be discussion. You kind of want to set those boundaries because what you don't want to happen is you don't want the calls to turn into just like a social time where people are just continually talking, then a distraction sort of defeats the purpose. If you want to do a virtual social hour, just do a virtual social hour. If you want to do virtual co-working, you make sure you sort of establish the rules of engagement. And even when people come in, have a way for them to know, like it's quiet time if you come in and off in between breaks. And then during the breaks, if you want to use that to help other people, to ask questions, answer questions, I do that with client work as well. So I have clients working with them. I'm on, they're on, we're working, but during the breaks, can ask questions, bring some things up, and resolve those if need be. So those are the work locations that I use in my travels and my remote work life. And I find them very, very useful. The purposes are varied, but they're great. If you are inspired to use any of those, if you have any questions about any of these, please drop them in the comment section. Please click the like button as well, because people can find this. If you think it's useful for someone else, the likes help other people discover the video, and then they can also get the information as well. So I really, really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Cheers.